Showed him how to play Dave May of the Madisons, and he said that Stuart was a pretty competent bass player. He was a gifted artist. Painting being purchased by the John Moores family, and so he got a bass guitar.
He got the job, I didn't.
Stuart was certainly a very, very gifted artist, but he was also John Lennon's best mate, and John wanted him in the group.
No, I don't think anybody ever really saw him play with the Beatles in Liverpool.
I know the person who showed him how to play, Dave May of the Madisons, and he said that Stuart was a pretty competent bass player. He could get by, certainly. He wasn't as bad as some people say he was, but his heart wasn't really in it.
We were all going to become famous, of course. We were quite sure of that.
John would do it with his music, Stuart and Rod would do it with the painting, and I'd do it with my writing.
We're a family, you know. We lived together for 4 or more years. That seemed to go quite well until the Beatles started rehearsing in the back room, and we started getting complaints from the agents saying that there was too much noise, and noise, Beatles, noise, ridiculous.
We went and auditioned for Larry Parnes. Tommy Moore was their regular drummer at that time, and they did a tour for Larry Parnes in Scotland, back in Johnny Gentle. It was a bummer, you know, it didn't happen. Tommy Moore came back from that and he said, I've had enough playing drums, I'm going back to being a forklift truck driver at Garston Bottle Works, and off he put it. So that left the berth for drums.
Howie Case and the Seniors were the very first Liverpool group to go to Hamburg via Alan Williams, a local promoter.
I danced at the club one night and there was no steel band, and the waitress, Audrey, said, didn't you know they've gone to Hamburg? Well, it could have been out of Mongolia for, you know. And so they wrote to me saying you should come over to Hamburg. And we went to this club called the Kaiser Keller. And there was an awful German band playing with no rhythm, just singing. I can still hear the guy singing, Tutti Frutti, oh Ruditer, and the kids were bored. So I found out where the manager, who he was, and I sold him the idea of having, bands from Liverpool.
It's a little bit quieter in here. The second invasion of Germany started about 4 years ago. This wasn't a military invasion, but more of a pop invasion of British beat artists. The club owners over here in Hamburg had been looking for a long time for something new to offer to the Hamburg youngsters. All they had here was television, and German television programs are usually aimed at the adults anyway. They heard from young seamen who had been in Hull, Southampton, Liverpool, such ports in Britain, on coast-to-coast cargo vessels, that an American style of rock and roll music was being played over in Britain by British artists. Of course, it was too expensive to bring American artists from the States, so these club owners, people like Peter Eckhorn, Bruno Koschmieder, decided to import British artists.
Liverpool band. So Alan Williams asked Rory Stone and the Hurricanes, the most obvious ones, but they were booked to go for a summer season at Butlins, so they couldn't do it. Then he asked Jerry and the Pacemakers, but Jerry Marsden was working on the railway and he wouldn't give up his jobs. So in desperation, he turned to the Beatles.
The Beatles had got a booking in Hamburg, but the contract stipulated that they had to have a drummer.
Got a phone call from Paul. Wasn't expecting it. And he turned around and said, we've had the offer to go to Germany, Pete.
So Alan Williams asked Rory Stone and the Hurricanes, the most obvious ones, but they were booked to go for a summer season at Butlins, so they couldn't do it. Then he asked Jerry and the Pacemakers, but Jerry Marsden was working on the railway and he wouldn't give up his jobs. So in desperation, he turned to the Beatles.
The Beatles had got a booking in Hamburg, but the contract stipulated that they had to have a drummer.
Got a phone call from Paul. Wasn't expecting it. And he turned around and said, we've had the offer to go to Germany, Pete. How would you be fixed about joining the band and playing?
Pete was a very good looking lad.
People say that Pete had the James Dean look, you know.
Smashing guy. Good, solid, thumpy, loud drummer.
And then lo and behold, which was the funniest thing of all, He'd seen me playing, he said, well, you've got to audition, Pete. So I landed up at the Blue Angel Club. They were all there. Lasted off about 6 numbers, which everyone knew. They went away in a corner for about 10 minutes. Alan Williams, who was the manager who was taking us out to Hamburg at that time, came in. John and Paul shouted out, this is the new drummer, Alan. You know, so Alan said, they made you audition in case you ask for more money. So I said, well, it's nice to know, but whatever they're getting suits me. Next thing was to check it out with Mum and Dad.
When they asked Peter to join them, they weren't really known, though I had used them in my club before. They weren't really known. It's only when Peter joined them, and Peter being with them as one of the Beatles, automatically I took a more personal interest in the boys. They said, it's what you're going to do, go with our blessings. So that's how I ended up, and a couple of days after that we were on our way to Hamburg. An old dormer van. There must have been about 11 or 12 people in it. You know, there's more equipment on top of the van than what there was inside. Sing-alongs, we nearly froze to death on the ferry going over, but that's another story altogether. It was just absolutely incredible. It was just this maze of neon lights, you know, absolutely spellbinding. We'd never seen anything like it before.
The red light district was pretty notorious at that time. And they were in some pretty seedy areas of Hamburg.
Especially in the St. Pauli area. It was gangster controlled. It was, you know, the red light district of the world at that time. But it was very violent. And it took us a while to actually recognise that. But we're from Liverpool, without blowing our own trumpets, we have a reputation of being able to look after ourselves. We thought we were going to be playing the Kaiserkeller. Bruno Koschmider, who was the manager, he basically turned around and said, no, you're not playing here, Derry's playing here, you know, you're playing at a club further down the road.
They were told, oh, you're not at the Kaiserkeller, you're at this other little club, former strip club called the Indra.